Our project was the Mosaic Tile Damage Detection System, and my name is Rashid.
I'm Anthony.
I'm Zach.
And we decided to look into something that we personally thought was the most heartbreaking thing in the park. So look at this picture. Would you want to go to a park where all the benches look like this, or would you rather go to a park where the benches look like this? I think for us it was pretty clear that this was the park that we'd rather visit. So that's pretty much our main inspiration. Just so you guys can see it one more time, this is before, and this is something that we would like to see possible in the future. So with that in mind, we came up with kind of two approaches to solve what we believe was a problem. Zach's going to tell us a little bit more about the background.
So in a lot of urban environments, vandalism is like a big issue, and it can overall it just makes the experience worse in wherever you are. It can also be very expensive to repair, and a lot of times traditional surveillance can just not be great. It can't fully encapsulate what you need.
And Zach's also going to tell us a little bit more about our mission.
So Heart and Soul Park, it opened in 2021, and it has been subjected to a lot of vandalism. Our goal is revitalization by consistent maintenance and adhering to the broken window theory, which is that basically if an area is damaged, it will be subjected to even more damage, because if you see something that's damaged, people are more likely to damage it more, and we can use that, or we can adhere to broken window theory to prevent snowball effects, and we can push the damage reports to the police systems.
So just to clarify what an RMS system is, it's the police ticketing system that's used by police to basically cover all of their tasks. So a ticket would cover hey, there's damage here, why doesn't someone go and look around and investigate? So it's that kind of thing, just tickets of work. So these damage reports would in the future, hopefully, be pushed to these RMS systems telling key officials who manage city management, hey, there's damage at this location, this location, this location. Why don't you send someone out maybe next week to go and fix it? That way we can continue to keep the park nice and steady. But to do this, we decided to come up with two main methods, and we decided to experiment with multiple methods because we believe that not one method will be the best, and we need to see multiple different avenues to find which one works best in order to get the best results. So Anthony is going to take it away with our first approach.
All right, so this is the first approach that we use to address mosaic tile damage in the park. So we have this image as an example that we used for testing. And the outline is that we first started with an OpenCV algorithm. OpenCV is an object detection library in Python. And we used OpenCV to create an algorithm that finds absolute differences between two snapshots. So the image that we have over here is the damaged reality that we found in the park. And Rishith edited an image. So would you like to show them the image? He edited this image just taking tiles off of surrounding parts and then just placing them on top of the damaged area so it looks relatively clean, and we used this for testing. And then we used this to test our absolute difference algorithm so that we can detect whenever tile damage can be seen between two different images. And then after we accomplished this, we moved on to LPIPS. LPIPS is a model that takes a score to determine the severity of differences within two images. And it uses larger object detection models such as AlexNet or VGG. In this case, we used VGG because it was more powerful and just it was able to identify more significant differences more easily. And we used LPIPS to take a score, a percentage score between 0 to 100%. That severity score, we set that severity score to a threshold. So once the program reached a certain threshold in some areas, then we would be able to trigger a response. And initially we had problems with the threshold because if we just did it over the entire image, then it would be very unlikely to detect these smaller pieces of damage. So what we did instead is we segmented the image into a grid of, first of all, we just did the 1x1, then we did 2x2, 4x4, 8x8, then 16x16. And so what this essentially does is it looks over every single part of that image and then it gives it an LPIPS score, and then that is more effective at finding damages in smaller areas. So after that, we did a little bit of quality control with RF-DETR, which is another object detection model that we use to identify people. And this model just detected whenever people walked in front of the camera so that it would prevent it from taking photos, because if someone were in front of the camera as it were
It would cover up this whole section.
yeah, as it was taking like another snapshot, then obviously there would be a difference and that would be incorrect. And we don't want that to happen, so this is just a preventative measure. And then after that, we implemented a little bit more into the LPIPS algorithm to set it to a timer so that it could consistently take snapshots of Mosaic. So yeah, these are the results that we had. So this is the result of the absolute differencing model using OpenCV. And then this model excelled at identifying the correct differences. We have one error here, but I found out yesterday that Rishit actually replaced the tile here with something else. So actually it did kind of work as expected. It's just, it was just a difference that we completely forgot about. But
wait, sorry, could you explain that one more time?
So we edited a photo. I didn't have access to generative AI tools to edit this, so I manually edited it using local tiles, sourcing local tiles and replacing it. So what I did was, for most of these damages, I would take a slice over here, put it over it, and then I would clean up the areas, the connection area. But I actually did it over here as well, and I forgot about that completely. I think I did that as a test run, I'm not entirely sure. And that's why it sees a difference, because originally this is actually a black tile.
Oh, interesting, okay.
So that's why there's a difference here, even though it doesn't seem like there should be a difference there.
And then I would just like to move on. This correlates with this heat map that I created with an analysis program. So all of these points are segments. This was a 16x16 segmentation of that image, and then it was reduced to 512 to 512 pixels. So this correlates with the damages found here, and then it shows the LPIPS scores that were identified for every segment of that image.
I see, so the grid that we look at in the top right, the 16x16,
Yes.
that represents the whole of what we see on the left-hand side, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And maybe a couple of questions. So one question is, did the team think about the impact that the aspect ratio change might have? So the aspect ratio on the left is, I don't know, I'm like speculating, it's maybe 3 to 4 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And over here it's 1 to 1.
Well, the thing is, I was having some issues with because if I want to use OpenCV to identify certain features, I have to make sure the aspect ratio is the same for every single image. So we just wanted to make it consistent, like we could just input an image of whatever size, and then so that we can have consistent results. So that does kind of change how this would map out onto this image over here. But yeah, that is something we could work on.
And so then maybe a couple other questions. So
Yeah.
let's take a look at the sort of the cross, the sort of the cross area, top part of the heat map.
Over here.
Sort of looks like an upside down cross, yeah. So I see what that corresponds to, but I'm curious why the hottest area is in the center.
That's because the most damage occurs almost.
No, it's not
immediately
gonna be
just
this
like,
area
oh,
over
my
here. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure. Actually, it may be because some of the pixels from these parts might fall into the grid. that was here, like it doesn't exactly correlate with this.
Oh, I see. Yeah, okay, got
Yeah,
it.
because this isn't a completely like aligned image.
Right.
So
Okay, I
there is
understand.
the chance that it will detect that difference in that area just
Yeah.
on the heat map.
Makes sense.
So yeah, that was just a little bit of margin of error.
No, that's totally fine. I forgot, you divide this thing into 16 by 16, which is
Yeah.
not gonna align with the ground lines.
Yeah. So moving on, we created this graph testing different thresholds that we use with LPIPS, and then also how many segments that we divide the image into. So what we were looking for was something that was efficient, because if you have a threshold value that's too high, like any change in brightness can impact what the LPIPS score is significantly. So we want something that's low enough that it's going to detect these kinds of damages, but not high enough so that it detects very minimal changes to camera detects. So we were shooting for around 50%, like a threshold value that captured 50% of the damages. So we found that with a 20% threshold, that was that did pretty well. And personally, through testing, 16 by 16 got a lot of damages that sometimes weren't really there. So we stuck mostly with 8 by 8, and that proved to be pretty consistent. All right, so there were some things that we needed to improve in the model, other than aligning the grids that we had before. Like, that's something else that we need to work on. Thank you, Dr. Hausner, for pointing that out. But another problem was with brightness, as I mentioned before, because the camera sometimes detected like small changes in brightness, and that significantly changed the LPIPS score, and sometimes that would detect that as a difference. We figured out a temporary way to fix that with function in OpenCV, but the absolute difference model suffers a little more from the change of brightness. So whenever we use our camera to take live footage, live snapshots of changes or the lack thereof, it would sometimes detect these changes because of the brightness, and then like circle the entire webcam as being changed.
One thing that you folks can think about, and I can't remember if I have this exactly right, but of course you can convert an RGB image to HSV, and so hue saturation and what's the, can't remember. I just made that up. I can't remember what that is. But in any event,
Visibility.
say,
Visibility.
what's, is that right?
Vibrance?
Vibrance, sounds right.
Yeah.
And I think that you can normalize, I think it's true, that in an HSV model, you can normalize brightness across multiple images. And then you can convert that stupid thing back to RGB. So you can go RGB to HSV, adjust the lighting so it's normalized between multiple images, and then go back to RGB, and your model probably will perform a little bit better. Just something to think about.
Yeah, and then another problem that we ran into was also the camera quality, because sometimes, I mean, we suspected that some of these detections and the change in brightness also came from the camera quality, so using a better camera would also probably help our results. And then, yeah, we experimented a little bit with parameter optimization, with like changing the thresholds and the grid sizes, but we could definitely have a more sophisticated method to find that next time, or if we continue doing research with this. And then also we were planning on implementing this in the park, piloting it with a Raspberry Pi 5.
I heard that was rocky.
Yeah, it was. I mean, if we had a little bit more time, then probably we could have maybe looked a little more into it, but.
I know that the Pi camera the Undercam didn't work. Did you guys try receiving the cable?
I tried multiple times.
It was just not
We also
recognizing.
had issues with the Python version because it didn't support a
Yeah.
lot of the libraries. that I
Pi
use.
4 is not supporting.
Yeah, so a lot of hardware and software problems,
Yeah.
but yeah, nothing time can't really fix. It's just we don't have enough of that. So, I believe that's then to the first approach.
So we will give a sort of a demonstration on the code near the end of the presentation so we can all kind of see how it looks. But moving on, I'm going to talk about approach 2, which uses multiple models, so almost a model merging approach to identify damage. So to start off, I use RF-DETR as well. It's a really lightweight model that outclasses models like Microsoft's Florence, Microsoft Florence, Polygemma. It's really, really lightweight compared to these, and I can run this on a real-time video, and I will show everyone. And it's almost real-time. There's a little bit of lag, but it's nothing that's a big deal. It's very lightweight, and it has a very high accuracy rate, which is why RF-DETR was our choice. So we did understand that there were going to be privacy concerns with having a real-time video feed, which is what RF-DETR was meant to identify, humans in a real-time video feed. So with those problems came the idea of anonymization. So we anonymize every human that's in the scene using RF-DETR, and then if there is a human in the scene, we will track it, and we will start running our models, our tier 1 and tier 2 YOLO models. So what our tier 1 model does is it identifies big chunks of damage in the scene after the human has left. So to clarify, once the human enters the scene, we start to kind of take notice. So it has a frame before the human entered the scene, and it uses that to count the damages. So with that in mind, it waits until the human leaves the scene using RF-DETR to identify if the human is in the scene. And then once the human has left, we take a photo, and then it'll analyze the damage on that photo to see if there has been any changes in the damage ever since they left. So that change in damage is going to be attributed to a damage report, and that way, because most of the time the damage is done by humans, sometimes it is done by nature as well, but a lot of the times it's negligence, maybe purposeful. Regardless of the reason, it is a lot of the time done by humans, sadly. So by addressing that factor, we can save on computational resources. Oh, shoot. Come on. So, yeah, that's that. But, so tier 1 takes a look at the big chunks of damage, and tier 2 looks at the more fine-tuned damage. So maybe little edge pieces are missing. Tier 2 will catch that where tier 1 can't. However, tier 1 is also really good anyway, and can still catch a lot of damages that are small too. I'll show everyone a photo near the end. So yeah, RF-DETR, again, it's really lightweight, but YOLO was chosen actually a lot for the same reason. Not only is it lightweight, but it's easily trainable, which is the main reason we chose it. Compared to other models like Polygemma, which needed a lot more training time and computational resources, YOLO was a lot cheaper to train, only took like 30 minutes, while Polygemma would take us 12 hours by the same comparison, which allowed us to have more testing time in real life, and it allowed us to see, hey, are these annotations working? Do we need to try a different approach? All that type of thing. So YOLO was chosen for that purpose, and that's why we have two YOLO models meant to identify damages. So the reason I chose a model merging approach is because this saves a lot more on computational resources rather than training one large model with a large data set. So training two separate models takes a lot smaller of a data set, a lot less time, and you can almost get identical results. So here are some of the anonymization measures I implemented. So one of them was through a Gaussian blur. That's me, by the way, and that's also me. And the first one, you can see the background fairly well, right? But you can't see the human well at all. So this is a great way to protect privacy. Now the second one, you can't even tell there is a human there, but you can see the background fairly well. So this is another great way that we want to protect privacy while also maintaining functionality. So that way everyone feels safe in the park. And we will show the results of this near the end. So here are some of the images from our field testing. The green is from the tier 1 model, blue is from tier 2. And so as you can see, it captured all the damages in the photo. And it identified if it's a broken light. It's kind of hard to read because it's green on white text, but that's a broken light, it says. And the rest of it says are damaged tiles. Now, on the bottom, here are some images of what it saw of other testing photos that we had, only with the tier 1 model. And as you can see, it has a high confidence level for all the damages. So here's our damage analysis report. They entered the scene at this, they left the scene at this. It doesn't track any particular human, by the way. It just only detects if there's a human in the scene. That way we can further protect privacy so people don't feel as though they're being tracked. And then here's the damage analysis report. And it just says the same two details up here. It says the duration And it also says some of the pre-processing information. That way, for our purposes, we can see, hey, is the model taking too long? Is it taking too short? What's the issues? So as you can see, it took around 0.5 seconds, really, to do all of the processing and everything for both YOLO models, which is fairly reasonable for a model of this scale on this device. And so in our case, we didn't test it with any damages. We didn't want to damage anything. So that's why it says there's no total damages and there's no damage detected in the scene. So there are some things that I would like to improve on this project if given the opportunity to. Having longer training times with more data would definitely lead me to have better model damage detection reports and results. And I would have wanted to design a system to push damage reports to the police RMS systems using webhooks or the like. We currently have the damage reports coming into the terminal, which is fine, but it doesn't push it into the RMS systems, which was our original plan. Potentially with more time, I could have developed that. And I also would have wanted to use a generative AI model to turn this into something that's maybe more readable for humans that are reading over the tickets. I understand that, police system, there's a lot of tickets. The person reading it is going to be probably pretty annoyed to see something like this. So having a generative AI model summarize these results would be very helpful. However, some of the biggest drawbacks are that we saw a lot of hallucination. I used a Mistral V7B to turn this into something readable, and all I got was a string of pleases. So it was very not helpful at all. I didn't want to see please 100 times, and I'm sure the police would rather have this than a bunch of nonsense. So with more time and more training resources, it would likely be possible to train or fine-tune a generative AI model to turn our text into a report that we would have personally liked to read. We would have also liked to have better hardware, as having a better camera might have also helped detect the damages better. It might not be visible from your end, but there should be a grid pattern in the middle of all these tiles, but it's very hard to see. That's partially because of the camera we chose, but again, with better hardware, that grid would have been more visible, and the computer probably would have been able to detect it better with a higher confidence score. And more field testing might have identified any flaws in the system, such as maybe it can't detect people very well under bright light. That would have been a significant flaw, but as we never conducted significant field testing, we wouldn't have been able to see.
All right, I can take this one. So, originally we had a third approach, but this can go under our future work now. We were originally thinking about also implementing a method through LiDAR, because that could be used to take images of the mosaics and then find the depth of areas that might be damaged, and then using that as a threshold so that we can consistently find more areas of damage compared to the flat mosaic, undamaged mosaic areas. So that was originally the plan, but we also were planning on fine-tuning a pilot test with Raspberry Pi 5 in the park. But all of these...
The biggest drawback with using our current Raspberry Pi was that it's Raspberry Pi Model 4B. Model 4B does not support Ultralytics because it caps out at Python 3.9, 3.11, and Ultralytics is meant to be run on 3.13. Ultralytics controls both the YOLO models, and that's the way that you can run YOLO locally. Without having Python 3.13, it is not possible to run my approach with a Raspberry Pi. So Raspberry Pi V5 actually supports 3.13, and pilot testing with the Raspberry Pi V5 might have been possible. However, as we never tried it ourselves, we cannot be sure if there was any other issues that might have come up. So we'll pause for questions, and after this, we're going to demonstrate the product.
That was excellent. Can you go back to the slide where you show the that one?
Oh, this one?
Yeah. So
Data, thanks to Zach. And so with those images, I had YOLO concentrate on kind of the damage tile. I only had two main things I wanted it to find: damage tiles or damage lights. Keeping it simpler would make it like higher performance, which is why instead of looking for high damage sections or low damage sections, instead of ranking that, we made it only focus on is it a damage tile or is it a damage light. So with that in mind, we were able to get really high performance out of it with very minimal training times. Like we only had 30 minutes of training time for the top model, and the blue is the second model, and we had 30 minutes for both, which is very low cost, Realistically, if we trained it on our own computers, it would likely would have taken 24 hours using these computers. But even still, that's very low effort for very high results.
And so you had 100 images with positive samples of error, with perhaps multiple errors for.
One of the main techniques that I used to get these good results was that I used something called bounding box augmentation. It was developed by Google in 2017. And so they, instead of augmenting the whole photo, they augmented bounding boxes. So they would flip it or they would rotate it or something. And by doing that, they were able to get significantly better results with smaller data sets. So after reading that, I decided to try it myself and it worked really well. So I think that's one of the main reasons we were able to succeed so well.
So you were flipping and mirroring the sub-images?
Yeah, the bounding boxes.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, this is great. Yeah, let's see the demo.
All right.
So let's start with.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just gonna show everyone how RF-DETR looks in real time. This is the webcam, by the way, that we're running it with. It takes a little bit to start out, but once it's actually going, it goes great. Okay, it takes a little bit more than a little bit.
Okay, hold on. Something's popping up. And then.
It's once it says loading pre-trained weights,
There we
there.
go.
Now it should pop up. There we go. So I used a pre-trained model. I didn't actually fine-tune this myself because it would have taken more computational resources for something that clearly already works fairly well. So we used the base model, the nano version, because it's the lightest one that still delivers high-end performance. So yeah, that's why we did this. Now that's it for this is the base RF-DETR. Now this is the blurred version where I blur people out rather than cutting them out to protect privacy. So in a real life situation, I believe blurring would be likely better. That way you can see the person's movements within the frame. But if privacy was the biggest concern, then cutting the person out of the image using the cutout method would have been the better method. This is also going to take a minute to start out, but it's the same situation again. So how it works is, I'm just going to say it while it loads up. It detects humans, and once it sees that there's humans, human present analysis pending, it's going to take a little bit to, oh yeah, by the way, those are you guys. It's going to take a little bit to wait until all the humans are gone. So I'm just going to turn off so we're just going to monitor the top. So it's going to change colors saying monitoring for humans. It waits until like 5 frames have passed, so that way it's not like a false report. So here we go. Here's the damage analysis report. So they entered the scene 10:41, left at 10:41 as well. They entered the scene here, scene duration 14 seconds. Here's the stats of how long it took to run everything. Let me move that. Oh. There you go. So that's how long it took to run everything. That's a frame size. There was no damage detected before and after. And yeah, now I'm going to show everyone the cutout version, which cuts out the person rather than blurring them out. This might be considered more useful for people for an area more concerned with privacy, again. But yeah, it still does the same exact thing, just instead of blurring them out, it cuts them out. Yeah,
Just give it a second.
it takes a second.
Loading for minutes.
Yeah. There we go. So as you can see, all the people in this scene are cut out of the photo rather than blurred out. So you can't really tell who's behind that at all. And it works the same exact way. If I shot the video feed, it doesn't see that there's anyone there. It's waiting. Okay, there's a minor issue with the computer right now. It's an extremely minor issue, but it does the same thing. But yeah.
Okay, and then if I could do a demo of mine, so
Could I just ask a quick question while we're on that model?
Yeah.
So, the way I understood, and I'm sorry I didn't catch this yesterday, but the way I understood your explanation is that it waits for the human to be gone
Yes.
to do the comparison, like
Yes.
the before and after.
Yes.
So, but in our case, we didn't leave, and so theoretically, what threw it out of the loop at that
Well,
point?
because I turned off the video feed, so it didn't detect it.
So you manually
Yeah.
made us leave.
Yeah, because now I can't see anything.
Perfect. Okay.
All right.
Thank you for explaining.
Yeah, no problem.
So Actually, I was originally going to show you a demo of the video feed, but that's a little finicky because it's on like a timing system. So I actually have one that I used with images that was also consistently better because it didn't really have the brightness variable in it. So I just wanted to display that to you. So right now I am testing the images that we had in the slideshow, the original bench, and then the restored bench that Rishit edited. And then what it's doing now, it's analyzing both of those images and then comparing them for LPIPS
Can you pull up the thing?
scores. Just a second. So it's just looping through each of these threshold values, and then while it's doing that, it's also looping through the grid sizes. So right now it's at 2 by 2, so it's basically taking just 4 segments of the image, and it got a pretty low LPIPS score, as I showed from the results we had in our slideshow. But this is the result of the absolute differencing, and we just have that saved as an image after every one of these runs. And then this is for 4 by 4. And then we have consistently higher LPIPS scores coming out from this one. And then we can also take a look at each of the patches that come out of these. So actually, if I go over here, this is the original damage bench, and you see there is some damage over here. And then if we go to the restored bench from the same index, this was fixed with Rishit's editing. And so if we go back here and just close this out, we can continue the program. And that's going to look at, I believe, 8 by 8? Yes, 8 by 8. So then that consistently also gets smaller areas of damage, but it with more precision. And then you see here there's 50%. So if I can find, once this settles down, if I can find a patch 17.
Are they numbered left to right, top to bottom?
Excuse me?
Are the patches labeled left to right, top to bottom?
Yeah.
Okay. From 0 or 1?
From 0. But yeah, I can end it off at 8 by 8 because it's about the same. And 16 by 16 takes a bit. But yeah, once we get to 63, it should be done. But it doesn't, actually, something I forgot to mention during the presentation, it stops recording anything that wasn't detected as like a large enough threshold. So that's why you see the skip between patch 55 and patch 62, because at that point it's just analyzing graphs that hasn't changed. So if we go to 17, that's 11, 18, 17, yeah. That's a pretty huge chunk of damage.
Yeah.
And then down, just a little bit farther down, this is 22, 16, 17. So that's the fixed version. All right.
Super nice.
I think that's it. If you'd like to look at our code, we can definitely do a run through all the programs and explain little details. But that's pretty much the gist of our whole program.
Or I could send you the GitHub link.
Yeah, that could also.
Please, for sure, send the GitHub link. And do we have copies of the presentations as well?
They were edited up until yesterday, so now is a good point to
capture them.
yeah, please upload it to our shared Google Drive.
I think they're there, but yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
The updated one's perfect, thanks.
That's it.
Fantastic job. Great
Thank
job.
you guys.